A chance meeting changed me irrevocably. This meeting left a trace not only in my thoughts, but also in my heart. It opened doors in front of me that I didn't even know existed, showed me other ways and possibilities. Now I know that the world is much wider and more multifaceted than I had imagined, and that there is room for wonderful discoveries and unexpected turns of fate. The day began like any other day off. I woke up feeling a slight sense of anticipation, because weekends are always a little celebration. I got out of bed, stretched, and went to the kitchen to make myself a cup of flavored coffee. While the coffee was brewing, I turned on my laptop and checked my email. There were a few emails from work, but I decided to save them for later. After all, it was my day off. Then I switched to social media. My newsfeed was filled with pictures of friends, posts about how to spend the weekend, and funny videos. But nothing really caught my attention. Everything seemed so ordinary, so everyday. Once I was done with the internet, I got down to housework. I cleaned the house, did the laundry, cooked a simple dinner. Everything went according to plan, and nothing disturbed the usual rhythm. I turned on the TV to watch my favorite show. Episodes replaced each other, and I immersed myself in the familiar world of heroes, forgetting about real life. However, after lunch, I felt that I needed some fresh air. The weather was perfect: bright sun, blue sky, light breeze. I grabbed my jacket and left the house. I headed to my favorite spot, a small pond in the park, surrounded by old trees. This place always calmed me, gave me peace. Usually there were few people here, and it added to the feeling of seclusion. As I approached the pond, I noticed that today it was also quiet and peaceful. The leaves of the trees swayed slightly in the wind, and the water in the pond glistened in the sun. But something caught my attention. There was a man sitting on a bench by the water. He was completely absorbed in reading a book, and his face was hidden under a wide-brimmed hat. Something about this scene seemed unusual to me, and I decided to get closer. As I approached the bench, my attention was immediately drawn to the tall man sitting there alone. Not wanting to disturb his peace, but still feeling the urge to get acquainted, I decided to come closer and say a polite hello. He heard my footsteps and leisurely raised his head to look at me. Our gazes met, and I immediately felt something strange, almost magical. His eyes were so deep and wise that they seemed to hold a whole universe of experience and knowledge behind them. For a moment, I forgot why I'd come here, speechless under that penetrating gaze. But then he smiled a warm, sincere smile that instantly dissipated the tension. With a gesture of his hand, he motioned for me to take the seat next to him. Slightly embarrassed, but flattered by the attention, I accepted. He greeted me, and his soft velvet voice was surprisingly soothing. He was pleased to see that he wasn't the only one who appreciated the beauty of this place. I smiled, feeling his words fill me with warmth. I looked around, enjoying the atmosphere of the park in the company of this unusual man. Trying to strike up a conversation, I started asking how often he visited this place. The man thought for a second, as if remembering something important, and then nodded. He said he comes here quite often. This park had become a kind of refuge for him. It was a place where he could forget all his worries and cares, rest his soul, and think about what was important. His words struck me. We continued our conversation, diving deeper and deeper into the world of his stories. It turned out that his name was Mike, and he had just recently settled in our town, although his stories made it seem like he had lived here his whole life. He enthusiastically shared his adventures, travels to exotic countries where every corner held its secrets, books that left an indelible mark on his soul, opening new horizons of thought and understanding of the world. His stories were not just a narrative of events, but a real philosophy of life. Each phrase was imbued with deep meaning, as if behind each thought there was a whole universe of experience and reflection. He spoke about the importance of finding time for yourself, about how important it is to be able to stop amidst the hustle and bustle of everyday life to listen to your inner voice and understand where your soul is moving. Listening to him, I felt as if our souls had known each other for a long time. It seemed that there were no barriers between us, and this conversation could last forever, revealing more and more secrets of this amazing man. Time flew by, and when the sun's rays began to softly touch the tops of the trees, coloring them with golden hues, Mike suggested we go for a walk. The alleys of the park seemed endless, and each step brought a sense of calm and peace. There was silence all around us, broken only by the occasional sounds of birds singing and the rustle of leaves underfoot. We slowly moved forward, discussing a variety of topics, from the subtleties of art to the depths of philosophy, from classical music to modern trends. Mike had an amazing gift for speaking in such a way that each topic became alive and tangible. His knowledge was astonishing in its depth and breadth, and his manner of presentation made me think about things that previously seemed obvious. Each of his stories gave me a new perspective on familiar things, and I found myself thinking that I was beginning to see the world a little differently. He suddenly said a phrase that made me stop and think, "Sometimes meeting one person can change your whole life." Those words sounded so simple, but there was more to them than just a statement. They were filled with a profound meaning that is hard to put into words. He added that such encounters happen quite unexpectedly, and often you don't even realize their significance in the moment. It is only after a while that you realize how much they have changed your path. These words penetrated deeply into my soul. I began to remember the last few hours I had spent with him. And I realized that this chance meeting with Mike had really already started to change my perception of the world. It had opened up new facets of my thoughts, made me rethink many things that had previously seemed self-evident. It was as if this person had appeared in my life specifically to guide me on a different path, to show me things I would never have seen on my own. The thought was mesmerizing and frightening at the same time. But most importantly, it awakened in me a desire to learn more, to see further, to discover corners of consciousness that I didn't even know existed. The evening streets slowly filled with shadows, and as I walked home, I couldn't stop thinking about our meeting. What was so special about this man? Why did I feel such a strong connection to him? Perhaps it was just a coincidence, a simple coincidence of two people in the same place at the same time. But something inside me insistently whispered that it wasn't a coincidence at all. This meeting seemed predestined, as if fate had brought us together. I woke up the next morning thinking about Mike. Without waiting for lunch, I went to the same park, hoping to see him there again. Maybe he wanted to continue our conversation too. My hopes rose with each step, but I soon realized that I'd been searching in vain for familiar features among the passers-by. The park was full of people, but not a single familiar face. The hours dragged on slowly, as if time had slowed down, and the day was gradually drawing to a close. The sun was sinking lower and lower, painting the sky a warm shade of orange and pink, and long shadows from the trees lined the winding paths of the park. But no matter how much I looked into the distance, Mike was nowhere to be seen. My thoughts began to jumble, trying to find some explanation. Maybe something had happened? Or was he gone, leaving our town as suddenly as he'd appeared? All sorts of scenarios flashed through my mind, but none of them were comforting. I tried to convince myself that everything was fine, that he might have had an emergency, or that he'd just decided not to come today. But the anxiety wouldn't go away. It was nesting somewhere deep inside, keeping me from relaxing. The sudden void left by his absence reminded me of how much our brief encounter had affected me. In such a short time, he had left a vivid imprint on my memory, and now his absence seemed especially tangible. It was as if everything around me had lost its brightness, becoming gray and ordinary. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had missed something important, that our conversation should have continued, but fate had decided otherwise. A week passed, then another, and Mike was still gone. Every day I went to the park, hoping to see him, but it was as if his footprints had melted into thin air. It was as if he'd just vanished, disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only questions and memories. My thoughts kept coming back to him. Who was he? Why did he come into my life? And why did he disappear so suddenly? These questions haunted me day and night. I felt that I had lost something important, though I couldn't say exactly what it was. It was a strange sense of loss, mixed with an incomprehensible longing. Months passed, but I still thought of that meeting often. Life went on, but it was no longer the same. I realized that I was looking at the world with different eyes. Maybe one day I would find out who he really was and why I had met him. Or maybe this mystery would remain unsolved forever, leaving room for speculation and conjecture. But one thing was clear: this chance meeting was a turning point in my life. It changed my view of the world, giving me new meanings and understanding. And despite all the mysteries associated with this man, I knew that this experience had made me stronger and wiser.